like they say, it's supposed to favor the underdog. How about C.J. Baxter on this one? There's no way. Actually, there is. He is that guy. 30, 20. Someone's coming for him. Nobody's going to get him. Touchdown, Edgewater.
Live from Orlando, Florida, you're listening to The Sports Scene with Jesse Ough.
Oh, smack the bear and call me Felicia. Yep, it's me, Jesse Ough. Welcome everyone to The Sports Scene on iHeartRadio and iHeartRadio podcasts, presented by First Bet and Sports Fluent Media. We've got a great show for you. No special guest this week, but we have a good lineup coming up in the next few weeks, so please stay tuned for that. So first, please welcome back your favorite color analyst and mine, Mr. Alvin Delvey. You're back and ready to go, brother. Hey, always good to have you with me. And before we go into our top 5 sports stories for the week, you know I always have one question for you. And this question is actually pertaining to our state. In Florida, on Sundays, it is illegal for a single woman to do what?
Yeah, I thought I had this one.
Yeah, we're starting off pretty heavy here.
A single... Dang, are we going to go heavy? Let's just go heavy. Whatever. Have an abortion. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's illegal most of the time in Florida because they just suck.
Yeah.
Actually, the answer is it is illegal for a single woman to skydive on Sundays.
It's illegal to skydive?
Apparently.
Whoa.
That's
right,
crazy.
weird.
You learn a new thing every day on this show, don't you?
Yeah, that's tough. We're just...
100%. All right, Alvin, are you ready for our top 5 sports stories?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. We're going to start with number 5. Let's do an Olympic sport real quick. We're giving you a story on some skiing because Mikaela Shiffrin capped her season that was marred by a 6-week injury layoff with her record-extending 60th win in slalom and 97th overall at the World Cup Finals Saturday. Shiffrin had already locked up her record equaling 8th slalom season title last week in her first race back since hurting her knee in a downhill crash back in Italy in January. The two-time Olympic champion sprained the MCL and tibiofibular ligament in her knee. Alvin, I know you're a PT guy. I don't even know what the tibiofibular ligament is, but it sounds painful if you tear it, right?
Yeah, definitely not the greatest, and it's not easy to recover from, so that's tough.
Yes, she was also recovering from a bone bruise that she had sustained at the start of the season as well. But with key rivals Petra Vlhova and Wendy Holdener ending their campaigns prematurely with injuries, Shiffrin has 7 slaloms this season, raising her career tally to 60. No other skier ever, male or female, has won more than 46 races in a single discipline. Shiffrin, who turned 29 on Wednesday, said on Instagram that the slalom would be her last of the season, skipping Sunday's giant slalom and next week's speed events. She's obviously probably going for the Olympics one more time in the Winter Olympics in 2 more years. So we're excited for Mikaela Shiffrin and all she has to offer. And also Lindsey Vonn, we've got just some of the best skiers in the entire world. So really looking forward to the Winter Olympics, but we got a lot more Summer Olympics coverage coming this summer because those start in Paris, France in July. So we're excited about that one. Our number 4 sports story. The New York Yankees ace pitcher Garrett Cole is facing a 10 to 12 week absence due to a right elbow injury. Despite all the concerns, Cole is not expected to undergo Tommy John surgery. So this news definitely brings a sense of relief to the organization, whose aim it is to compete for the AL East crown here in the 2024 season. I actually saw the Yankees last night in Tampa for spring training, and they got dogged like 6-2 by the Pittsburgh Pirates. It is still spring training, so we're not going to jump into any conclusions right now, but the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to be in the bottom of the league. Absolutely, for sure. By the way, spring training in Florida, absolutely unbelievable. I'm taking Alvin next week. I have never been to spring training ever before in my life, not even on the West Coast in Arizona. Everyone should go to spring training. Like that, when I went to spring training, okay, you know what? America's pastime around this time of the year, baseball. It reinvigorated my love for baseball, which was kind of awesome. I'm a huge baseball guy, Alvin. Hey, anyways, Cole's injuries mark his first absence from a start due to a non-COVID ailment since 2016, impacting the team's pitching rotation plans for the upcoming season opener. So with Cole's absence, the Yankees are considering options like Nestor Cortez or Clark Schmidt to fill the void. I actually saw Clark Schmidt pitch last night. and he pitched like piss. Gave up 4 runs. Cole, who signed a record-setting contract with the Yankees back in 2020, holds a 308 earned run average in 108 starts over 4 seasons with the Yankees and has been their best pitcher for some time. And he remains a crucial asset to the team's pitching lineup. So we're going to see how Aaron Boone and the pitching coach for the Yankees kind of switch everything up going into the start of Major League Baseball season. All right. Let's get into something for you, Alvin, with our number 3 sports story. The 9-bowl subdivision conferences and Notre Dame reached an agreement Friday on a 6-year deal to continue the college football playoff through the 2031 season, a significant step that establishes a revenue sharing plan and allows the college football playoff to finalize a media rights agreement. Executive Director Bill Hancock said the agreement doesn't lock in a format for the college football playoff for 2026 and beyond, but it guarantees at least a 12-team field in 5 conferences having annual access to the playoffs through 2031. The playoff is expanding this season from 4 teams to 12, with the 5 highest conference champions, regardless of league, and 7 at-large selections making up the field. The plan, which I think you might like for 2026, per our source, is for the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the Southeastern Conference to receive automatic CFP bids, along with the highest rated champion from the 5 other conferences that signed the deal. The American Athletic, Conference USA, Mid-American, Sunbelt, and Mountain West, they'd all get a bid. The Big Ten and SEC, though, have been pushing for models that would give their conferences multiple automatic bids, but that talk has been tabled for now. So the number of teams in the college football playoff could grow to 14 under a new agreement, but for now, there's no plan in place or no urgency to make that decision. Do you think they're kind of just going to wait to see how everything plays out this year to sort
1,000%.
of see how things go past 2026?
You should. I think that's proper. Obviously, you got to let the market dictate how things go moving forward. But I definitely like the initial push. The initial push being expanded. We saw the outrage with FSU. We saw the outrage, and that's happened year in and year out. There's always a team that's right on that cusp. So now, if you could expand it to 12, and I like that the champions 1 through 4, you're going to get home field. And then from there, everyone else kind of battles it out. So it's going to be ideal to see. You're still going to get premier football. You're still going to get elite football. But now, the later weeks of the season, you're going to have a lot better football in November because now you're going to have to start creeping into better play in October. And I think the more teams that get involved with the college football playoffs is going to force you to have a lot less money games, quote unquote. And I think Coach Primetime, Deion Sanders, did a good job years ago of explaining that the money games aren't necessarily as big of a bag as you think they might be, rather than playing a team that you can compete with and play excellent football and get on a network and have it be a classic game. So that's a debate that's also out there when it comes to just sheer getting money, getting the bag for your program. So I like how the expansion that we're seeing now with college football can really enhance the experience because now you're competing with a lot of different sports. Down the rundown, we're going to talk about how women's sports are coming into prevalence and really making a splash in the market, and viewership is increasing there. So I think that now everyone's vying for different eyes, and the viewership is now really a competition. So I like how college football and the NCAA is really making that shift and just trying to be competitive and adapting with the new changes. So I do think this is going to be the early iterants of it, but then moving forward, we're going to see a lot more tweaks being made, and whether it goes to 14, whether it goes to 16, I think that all dictates or is going to be predicated on whether we have as much outrage as, let's say, an FSU being quote unquote snubbed, or if there's going to be a little more chaos around that time. You're still going to have that chaos, but I'm excited to see how that plays out.
You see at least every player that's in CFP 2025 got paid $600 to have their name in it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I mean, I would have liked the heavier bag, but listen, a bag's a bag. A bag's a bag. But a bag is a bag.
But you got to think about how many teams in CFP 2025 there are. Like, it is, 600, I think,
it's a big check.
Reasonable at this point in time because, nobody's going to play as the same team. Like, you're going to have guys who, went to Morehead State, want to play as Morehead State. You're going to have guys who went to Davidson, want to play as their team from Davidson. You want to have guys from, Cal. That want to play as Cal. So there's so many different teams. It's not like a 32-team, NFL game that where, you only can choose one of 32 teams. there's at least 100 and something teams in this new college football game. So,
I like it. I do like, so I just like where it's going in general. And we'll talk about that probably another day with the NILs and how they're going to have to, try to put a net around that and make things a little bit more guaranteed and fair for both sides, but continue to give students the bag. But when you talk about NCAA, when it comes to a video game, I'm just a residual guy. I'm the type of guy that, yes, 600, a check of that is good, but then I feel like you should still be getting a something monthly or a quarterly or, semi-annually, whatever you could divvy that up to make it make sense if you have a college game in 24, but then in 10 years, you still might be playing that game. So I feel like that's where I'm at with it. But I definitely still love the initial push. This is, we're leaps and bounds where we were when 2014 dropped. So I'm definitely happy that we're in the right space.
And we're starting the push for Reggie Bush to get his Heisman back. That's all that matters. He should have had him. Also, back to the college football playoff thing real quick. They haven't decided yet whether or not the Pac-12 will even be signing the deal. They have not signed it yet because there's so much uncertainty in the future of that conference that they have no idea what's going on. Hopefully they can rebuild it and then get one of those automatic bids to the college football playoff in the future. But we're going to move on. How about some more football for you, Alvin? For our number 2 sports story, it's been quite the whirlwind week in the NFL. Aaron Donald is retiring. The Eagles traded for Kenny Pickett. The Rams are signing Jimmy Garoppolo. The Browns hired Mike Vrabel, to many more things, which we'll get into next week with our surprise guest on the program. But, Alvin, even in a week where we should be talking just pretty much about basketball, football still somehow just keeps making these humongous headlines. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think NFL has really done a good job of being relevant, honestly. You can think of the Cowboys, for instance. Since we've been alive, they haven't had a playoff run. There's multiple teams that's like that. But then always finding a way to be number one in sports talk shows and being in different areas all the time. And I think this was another one that was really good. We're in March, and we're talking about football and how exciting that is. You got Russell Wilson that's on the Steelers. They're making so much moves. You got Keenan Allen on the Bears. The what's going on with the Chargers, no one knows. All these different things are felt. Unfortunately, the Dolphins are doing things that we've seen, and it's not good. I don't like it so far. But I think that what they've been able to do with just a player movement, and teams are really trying to shape up for the season coming up because we know what KC is going to do. We know what 49ers look like. There's a lot of teams that look really good, but you got a team like Baltimore that get Derrick Henry, and you have now an elite backfield somehow gets even better. So there's a lot of movement that's happening. I love it, and we haven't even gotten to the draft yet. So we don't even know the Bears. They just got a dog at receiver, top 10 receiver in Keenan Allen. We have no idea.
How the hell did the Chargers trade that guy? He's had 1,000 yards receiving for every year he's been in the league.
They got rid of all their skill guys. But the thing that I like about that,
Mike Williams is gone too. Austin
everyone's gone.
Eckler's
The
out of
running
there.
back, everyone's gone. So
they had to get salary cap compliant.
At the same time, though, if I'm in that organization, I'm okay with the fact that we got Harbaugh coming in, and he is the quarterback whisperer. Not only just that, but if you can whisper to the quarterback in today's NFL, you really have unlocked the keys to the Lambeau. And you are very poised in a great position to be successful. So I think they're doing it's scary at first, but I think this is one of those ones where you got to trust the process with the Chargers if you're a Charger fan. But I just like how everything's disrupted. It's not even organized chaos. It's just chaos. We got straight up chaos right now. And I can't say I don't like it. The only thing I don't like is that so far the Dolphins, I don't know. I'm just nervous. That's all I'm gonna say is I'm nervous. I'm not happy necessarily. We'll see how things shake up, especially after the draft and going into the summer and how things look around that time. But Fins, I don't know if I'm screaming Fins up right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you are.
That's all you can say. That's all you can say is, yeah, man, that's tough.
I wish I could console you, but Yeah, that's how it goes. Hey, all right,
drank
we got to
some
get into our
orange
number
juice,
one
man.
sports story here. Alvin, what do you call
I'm sick.
Yeah, I feel so bad for you now. I didn't even have a comeback to back you up there. Hey, for our number one sports story, what kind of music do mummies listen to?
This is about to be terrible. Def Jam? My fault.
Rap. They
Hey,
listen to
that's
rap.
tough. I like that.
Duh.
I like-
All right, well, I wish we could get into that more, but stay tuned because we've got an actually fantastic number one sports story coming up for you when we return after this. Welcome back to the sports scene, everyone, for our second segment. Hey, it's time to get into some March Madness stuff because it's March, and interestingly enough, the guys are finally getting an idea of what it's like to be the women all these years. So March Madness kicks off next week, and all the buzz is squarely on the women's NCAA tournament. The stars, the storylines, the spotlight, they're all in the women's game. Caitlin Clark obviously is must-see TV. Juju Watkins and Hannah Hidalgo are her heirs apparent. And the big question ahead of Selection Sunday is whether top-seeded South Carolina and LSU might fight or face each other again in the Final Four. The men's tournament, well, they're having one. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot to say or even see. We watched Connecticut grind its way to the national title last year. We don't need to watch it again. Zach Edey might be a wonderful human being, but he's no Bill Walton or even Chet Holmgren. Outside of your alma mater, I dare you, the casual fans, to name 5 other teams you'd sit down and watch. My team's not in it. Cal's not in it. I mean, we had a great season. We improved from 2 wins in the Pac-12 to damn near 10. But
Idaho State's not in it either, man.
yeah, exactly.
That's
so it's just crazy how much the women's game is growing and it's getting so much more attention. So while much of the attention, I think, rightfully so, centers around Caitlin Clark, who earlier this month passed Pete Maravich as college basketball's all-time leading scorer, there's been a spillover effect that's led to blockbuster ratings, increased attendance, and the kind of debates and conversations that have traditionally been reserved for the men's sports. Now, here's where some insecure man shouts, okay, nobody cares about women's sports, or makes a joke that, tens of people watch. But there's actual data to show these wrongdoers, how much people actually care. And on average, more than 3 million people tuned into CBS to watch Clark and Iowa beat Nebraska and win their 3rd consecutive Big Ten title last Sunday, with the audience peaking at 4.45 million when the game was in overtime. That set a record for a women's conference tournament game on any network, and also was the most watched game, men's or women's, on CBS this season. And I remember watching it when I was watching the game. I turned to my girlfriend and I was like, hey, watch this. They're going to publish something about how this is going to be the most watched conference game of all time. Bang! Jesse knows TV and how it works, baby. It beat many of the men's games that day too, by the way. But wait, there's more. The SEC tournament title game between LSU and South Carolina, which aired Sunday afternoon, drew nearly 2 million viewers. The Pac-12 final between Watkins USC and Cameron Brink Stanford also topped 1 million, a 461% increase over last year. No, I'm not misspeaking. That's 461%. That's insane. Of the top 6 basketball games, pro and college, that aired on Sunday, 3 were women's games, Alvin. This is crazy. Programs across the country have set records for attendance, led by South Carolina. The Gamecocks averaged 16,489 per game this season and could still, mathematically at least, surpass Tennessee's record for single-season average attendance set in 1999 when they drew 16,565 per game. This is an absolutely insane year for women's basketball, and I just want to hear your thoughts about pretty much everything that I just spoke about there, because, like I said, who cares about the men's tournament this year? Actually, unfortunately,
It's excellent.
Who does?
It's excellent. So the difference, if you just look at it like fundamentally, like if you're a basketball head and you're watching the game, when you're watching college ball, the you like it because it's aggressive. We have you feel the hunger, you see the hustle, it matters, all this, that, and the third, and you love that, you gravitate towards that. But you got to keep in mind at this stage in the game, in the basketball season, NBA is that as well. So NBA is, you have that hustle, you have the tenacity. It's every game matters. You feel that. So now you're losing out viewership to the NBA for the basketball nuts. And then the downfall of men's college basketball is that with that 30-second shot clock, essentially you have 10 to 15 seconds where you're just running random actions. You're doing DHOs that you don't necessarily need to do. You're not moving the ball to get something going. It's a lot more patient. Everything's in half court. It's not as high flying and quick pace as NBA has transitioned to. Whereas NBA, you're one pick and roll. You got two man action. You got your best. You got good on good. If I have Katie and Book, I'm gonna run an action with those two. If I got Yoke and Murray, I'm running action with those two. Everything's going off of that. And once you get that initial action, depending on how the defense collapses or scrambles or reacts to it, you're immediately kicking to something that is working. So you have a lot less time of just fluff actions, of fluff screens happening that aren't leading to aggressive plays. So if you are a basketball head, you're immediately shifting towards NBA when it comes to the men's sport. So that's a little bit of a downside for men's college basketball. On the other hand, for women, what we're seeing is crazy. Like, there are literal buckets, and it's hard to see Caitlin Clark and not just want to tune in. It's hard to see a Juju and not just want to tune in because of how they're getting their buckets. Juju is, I'm not saying she's Kobe, but the way she's electric, and she's going to get her shot off. Like, that is not a problem for her. Confidence is not an issue. So the way she handles the rock, and the way that nowadays you're allowing women to, not just nowadays, but since more eyes are on it, you can see how fundamentally sound majority of women's basketball is. Because, all right, the biggest qualm that people have is, oh, they're not dunking, they're not doing this, that, and the third above the rim. But then because of that, now you have a bunch of people, a bunch of athletes that are just fundamentally sound. They're moving the rock around, they're getting aggressive, and then now you put the handles on, you put the shooting display on. It's very fun to watch, and it's cool because it's something new. So people love something new. People love watching something, the underdog story of, oh, we didn't know, but now we do. And that's what we're seeing. And these girls are getting up on stage and they're shining bright. So I think it's very easy to see why you can fall in love with women's basketball as a basketball head. And then on top of it, it's just fun to watch in general. It's fun to see people galvanize around the sport. Student sections are popping off. And now the way that the tickets are set up with Caitlin Clark and everyone's going around there, everyone just wants to be on that wave. And I love it. So it's good for the game. College basketball for men need to catch up as far as, I think, even if you lower that shot clock down, just lower the shot clock down, force them to be more aggressive early so that way they can compete. Because right now, women's game is taking off.
It's just crazy because, like in the women's game right now, we have Caitlin Clark in Iowa. You have South Carolina. You have Kim Mulkey and Juju Watkins, Angel Reese and Paige Buchers. The star power and the drama, Cameron Brink in Stanford, Tara Vanderveer, who won 2 national championships like 20-plus years removed. And the drama this March is decidedly on one end of the gender divide. And it's just like, put your misogyny aside and look at these two tournaments side by side for a sec, Alvin. Not your misogyny, but just like the misogyny of the average man out there. I'm not talking about you. You love women's basketball.
I don't got it, man. I got a lot of women in my life.
You know what I'm saying. But anyways, what's the more compelling story? Can Dawn Staley lead South Carolina to an unbeaten season, or can Purdue finally beat a number 15 or number 16 seed? What's a bigger draw? Watching Caitlin Clark fill it from anywhere on the court, or watch Zach Edey park himself in front of the rim and see how many times he gets fouled? What's more made for TV? Kim Mulkey in a reality show of basketball trying to go back-to-back, or Dan Hurley and UConn suffocating opponents just like they did last year? Right. Look, the men's tournament is going to be great. It always is. There will be upsets and dramatic finishes and new stars who emerge. Like that little point guard from Kansas State last year. He's really good.
Yeah.
What's his name again? Yeah. It took you a second, and maybe a Google search to come up with Marquise Knoll, right? But the beauty of March is that there will be another Knoll type this year and the year after, especially in this era when college basketball's regular season appears to a relatively small number of diehards compared to what it used to be. But what's better theater? It is for sure the women's tournament. And I wanted to talk about the whole fight between LSU and South Carolina for a sec, because you never should underestimate Kim Mulkey's ability to make a situation worse, Alvin. The ugliness that marred the end of the SEC tournament game Sunday afternoon called for restraint, common sense, and a dose of humanity from both coaches. South Carolina's coach, Don Staley, understood this, apologizing for the Gamecocks' role in the melee that began with Flau'jae Johnson intentionally fouling Malaysia Fulwiley and bumped Ashlyn Watkins on the way back to the bench during a timeout, and escalated when Camila Cardoso shoved the much smaller Johnson to the floor. And when I say shoved, I mean she decked her. It wasn't what South Carolina's program was about, which is what Staley said. She said, I apologize to all the basketball fans out there. This is not what I'm about. But not long after, Cardoso put out an apology on social media. Mulkey, however, went in the opposite direction. She started off okay, Alvin, saying, no one wants to see that ugliness. That's a direct quote. And then she veered into WWE territory. She said, but I can tell you this. I wish she would have pushed Angel Reese. Don't push a kid. You're 6'8". Don't push someone that little. That was uncalled for, in my opinion. Let those girls that were jawing, let them go at it.
That's terrible. That's
your
just
thoughts
terrible.
On that?
That's just terrible because, like, and you know, everyone already sounded off on that in sports media, but my 2 cents is just as a leader, you know, as a coach, like you're really supposed to have your kids' best interests at heart, right? So, like, let's just go back to the moment. Angel Reese, the reason why people were calling her softest and the third, first off, everyone's in uniform in front of 20, 30,000 people. You're not here to fight. Like, that's the dumbest thing in general. Obviously, stuff happens. Like, you get the emotion could take over that. But outside of that, if you like logically think of it, like you're here making a bag, you're not in an octagon trying to fight. The goal is to win the game. So Angel Reese rolls her ankle. She's hurt. Like, she is actively in pain. She's walking off. She says she doesn't have time for it because she's trying to go get treatment so she can continue to play the game. So if things happen the way Coach Mulkey wants, so your star player is limping off and you want a 6'8" person to come and lay her out just completely irrelevant from that's what you want to happen based on what she's saying. But realistically, it's unfortunate solely because are things going to get chippy? Of course. You're saying pre-game in those locker rooms, you're saying some crazy stuff that if you just say that to a random person walking down the street, it's going to sound wild, you know. But in the locker room, it's fine, you know, to say impose your will. Like, we're going to dominate these people. It's going to be physical. It's going to be a bloodbath. You're saying crazy stuff like that, but you don't actually mean for it to be outside of the whistle, outside of the lines. You mean it in the parameters of if the ball's on the ground, it's me versus you. It's going to be me every time, you know. So I don't like how you go into the media and you're portraying that message, and I think that should hurt her in the sense of if you're an athlete going to commit somewhere, you should keep in mind the type of message that your coach, your leader, is spewing to the media, because you have to understand when you're in the media, you're buttoned up. Behind closed doors is going to be different. When you're on your recruiting trips, it's buttoned up. When you're talking to your coach, when they're in front of your parents, it's buttoned up. Behind the scenes in those locker rooms, week 3 of training camp, when you're on a road stretch, it's not going to be buttoned up. So you have to keep in mind, if you're a recruit going to these programs, who you're dealing with and what their mindset is, because what you see on TV, that's the buttoned up version.
You know, to be clear, there is no excuse for what Cardoso did. The hair pulling, the shoving, and the overt physicality by LSU players during the game are not equal bad acts and in no way justify what South Carolina's best player did. Nor should Johnson's brother coming out of the stands afterward and Mulkey's crassness post-game be used to minimize
That's crazy.
Cardoso lost her cool, and she was rightly punished for it. She'll be out in the first game of the tournament. Obviously, they'll be a 1 seed, though, and play the University of Nevada Chungalunga, right? And they'll probably win without Cardoso. anyway. So
Yeah.
at the same time, I think the other main problem was Johnson's brother running onto the court, which I think you agreed with, right?
That's a huge problem because the whole thing was a debacle in general. Let's definitely air that out. That's not something. No one's innocent in that situation. Obviously, the people that were involved, but then I understand it as for the brother's perspective, as far as you can. Shannon Sharp had a good piece on it saying sometimes you can black out and forget where you're at when it's family. And my siblings all play sports, so I've been in situations where you're watching your sibling play, and it's like, you love this person, I'm the only one that could mess with them. So when someone else does, you can black out. But at the same time, you do have to have a certain understanding of where you are at all times. And so that was unfortunate to see, because it's just unacceptable. That's not the precedent you can send. You just cannot allow that to happen. So I think it was the perfect thing you have to arrest him, you have to send a fine, you have to make sure that's a deterrent, so people aren't thinking, you know what, like I'm right here, I could jump over this scores tables and get busy. You don't want that to happen at all. So I think what happened after that was excellent. Be swift, be assertive, make sure that is deterred and you're not having that type of issue again. But then at first, when I first saw it, I was like, man, you can't do that, because you're putting your sister, your loved one, you putting her in a situation that she shouldn't be in, and it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, what do you plan on doing when you get there? So I didn't like the whole situation at all. But then Shannon Sharp's perspective definitely made me understand, like, okay, you can black out, I get that, but at the same time, love the way it was handled on the back end. Make everything swift. Don't like Coach Moki's comments. Loved Dawn Staley's. Coach Dawn Staley, there's a reason why her program is excellent. There's a reason why her standard is able to be upheld to the utmost degree, regardless of who's wearing the uniforms. Obviously, she does a great job on the front end of making sure you get the right girls in that locker room, the right coaching staff to go ahead and enforce those messages. But I think her at the helm is perfect, because it is unfortunate. It's not something that you want to be. We shouldn't be having to have a segment about the fight. You want to be having a segment about how good that game was and the way that women's basketball is going up. Granted, the scuffle definitely got more eyes in there because people are thinking, man, like these girls are getting after it. But at the same time, you want to be a leader to kids. You want little kids to be able to watch the game and be like, yeah, like this is how I love how they're running their exit zone, not how the ending happened. So I definitely think Coach Staley handled that properly as far as the media is concerned. And I also wish her the best of success. I like the storyline that she has, because the reason why she's able to do the things she's doing is because of her character and how she carries herself and how she conducts her business with her team behind closed doors. So I think everything was excellent as far as the back end of it. But yeah, man, that was unfortunate. That was unfortunate that happened the way it did.
Absolutely. Let's get into some NBA basketball next when we return here on the Sports Scene. Boom, boom. Welcome back to the Sports Scene, everyone. There's 1 month left in the 2023-24 NBA regular season before the postseason begins with the play-in tournament. It's a close battle for positioning in the playoff field, with the current NBA standing showing a tight group in both conferences. One team stood out among the rest, though. The Boston Celtics own a league-best 52-14 record at the time when we are talking about this right now, and are the only team in the league to clinch a playoff spot as of March 15th. They lead a group of 4 favorites in the odds taking home the NBA title this season. So here's how the latest power rankings and NBA rankings look with the odds from BetMGM. Alvin, let's talk about some of these odds real quick, all right? So obviously the favorites to win the title this season, the Boston Celtics, they're at plus 230 right now. Boston, they got back on track on its road trip to open March with a 117-107 win over Phoenix on March 9th. 3 more wins over Portland, Utah, and Phoenix again at home made up for the consecutive losses to open the month. By the way, the Celtics remain the only team in the NBA to rank in the top 3 in offensive and defensive rating at 122.8 first and 111.4 second, respectively. They're one of the most complete teams in the league on both ends of the floor. What do you think about that?
If you're talking about the Celtics, I will agree. I think Derek White running the 1 and really facilitating and moving the rock around with his size and IQ. I think it's scary hours, I would say, just for other teams. However, being a Heat fan, I know that we kind of have this, not kind of, we have like a really bitter rivalry. So I'm excited to see how that we'll meet them at some point in the playoffs. And I'm excited to see how that's going to look, because for some reason that just turns into a 7-game series. So I'm excited to see. I know that they're firing all cylinders. Jaylen Brown just gave him 37. Phoenix, that is, gave him 37 recently. I think he's playing his best ball. He's figured out that left hand just a little bit. So I'm excited to see how going into playoffs they'll be, because I think Tatum's doing an excellent job of really being a franchise player. What I mean by that is he's not firing off the tip like he used to. He's not hunting his shots early in the games. He's kind of letting everybody else do their thing. He might have a few shots early on, but then from there, he's letting everyone get a feel for it, so that down the stretch, everyone's involved, everyone's bought in, and everyone's already warm. They've seen a few shots go in. So I think they're doing a lot better job. And I don't know if that's because Tatum's taking that next step, or if it's because Derek White's doing a better job, or if it's the addition of Drew Holiday and his leadership in the locker room. But they have a lot of different things, and that's not even mentioning what Porzingis can do when he gets loose and when he's aggressive. So I think Celtics are pretty scary. I'm not going to lie to you.
Jason Tatum is an MVP candidate, Alvin. He's their top scorer, but he's one of 3 Celtics scoring more than 20 points per game. Kristaps Porzingis, who seems to be their missing piece that they've been missing the last few years, sits 11th in the NBA in player efficiency rating at 23, ahead of stars like Kevin Durant and Jimmy Butler. So Boston, they travel to league worst Washington on Sunday, and then after that, the Celtics close March with 7 games featuring just 2 opponents with winning records in Milwaukee and New Orleans. Let's get to our number 2 team here at plus 50 in the sportsbook, Galvin. The Denver Nuggets, the defending champions. They're going to continue to climb the Western Conference standings and close the gap to Boston in the process. The Nuggets are now squarely in the fight for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, behind a 10-1 record since the All-Star break. Obviously, their star center Nikola Jokic is the easy favorite to win a 3rd MVP, behind a league-best 31.2 player efficiency rating, which is fantastic, 13.8 win shares, which is like, I guess, war in baseball, and a 13.6 box plus minus. Those advanced metrics give him a sizable lead over the field. And he's not alone, though. 6 Nuggets are averaging double-digit points per game this season. Jamal Murray is posting career highs in three-point shooting, 41.6%, and assists per game in 6.3. What do you think about them?
It's first off, I think Jokic is, I want to say, the best player in the league, because when I watch him defensively, I feel like you can manipulate him a little bit, but I don't think he's as much of a liability as the casual might think, just because he's not super athletic, he's not jacked, so he's a liability. But I don't think so. I think the way you stop Jokic is physicality. I think what we saw in the bubble is the only way to stop him, and teams just either they won't do it, they don't know how to do it, or they just don't have the personnel to do it. So that leaves me with he's a monster, because you can't sag off of him. He'll pull that thing back and launch it from deep. You can't play him too aggressively. You can't send that double, because his passing ability is bar none. He's top 5 passing ability wise. So his IQ's there. He knows he's playing chess. He legitimately is playing an orchestra. He's leading the orchestra when it comes to that. And then from there, you have Jamal Murray, who can really operate as a 2 guard if need be. He can run it, obviously. He's in 1 by default, but I love his ability to get loose and shot clocks down. He can make some moves. And I think Michael Porter Jr. is gaining confidence. I think he's playing a lot better recently as of late. And Aaron Gordon, the thing that's scary about him, we know him as a dunker. We know him as being in a dunker spot, throw lobs, this, that, and the third. But he's aggressive, and he can launch it from beyond the arc. If he's feeling comfortable, he can get streaky where he can give you a few mid-range, give you a 3-ball, and give you a couple highlight plays. He can be that spark plug for you. And then you got Braun in there. You got Holiday that could come in there and mix things up. But don't forget, you got Reggie Jackson, too, who's a vet, who's a leader behind the scenes. So I think the team is well-rounded. Obviously, they're defending champs for a reason. You have an MVP candidate, and I think that's all recipes for success. So Denver Nuggets, I think they're going to be in the finals. I don't really see a team in the West that can really mess with them for 7 games. So I think they're going to be there again. Now, whether they win it all, I think the finals is going to go to Game 6, but I think the Nuggets are going to be in there to represent the West.
The Nuggets are on a 4-game road trip that wraps up Tuesday against Minnesota, a fellow Western Conference contender. That matchup and another 2 games at home against the Timberwolves in March will have major playoff position ramifications, so we're excited to see that. Okay, the number 3 team in the power rankings at plus 550 to win the NBA Finals is the Los Angeles Clippers. Alvin, the Clippers' odds for the NBA title have gotten lower over the last 2 weeks because Los Angeles is 6-6 since the All-Star break. That's more losses than the stretch between Christmas and All-Star weekend when the team went 19-5. Those 6 losses have all come against teams currently in playoff positions in both conferences. The Clippers remain one of the top teams in the offensive rating category, sitting 4th in the NBA at 119.9, and continue to have one of the best starting 5 groups in the league on the defensive end with the lineup of James Harden, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Terrence Mann, and Ivica Zubac. What do you think?
I think they're good, but I mean the old adage, the Clippers going to clip. I think they have yet to stave me off that path. They lost a heartbreak to the Pelicans. Zion, excellent, slicing and dicing, getting to the rim and getting that buzzer beater. I thought that was super cool. But I think Paul George and Kawhi, to see them play as well as they have been, and really, we haven't been able to see that. Like, I haven't been able to really witness, no one has, Paul George and Kawhi in the playoffs together. And then you throw James Harden in there, where James Harden as a third option that's
ridiculous.
That's terrifying. Because when you think, and you know this better than anyone as a Warriors fan, when you had that Chris Paul Warriors Rockets Chris Paul Harden on the Rockets versus the Warriors way back when, and they were always getting to the Western Conference Finals, it was really good games. You were nervous for a little bit, and then but then the whole Harden's going to choke or whatever. That he was a number 1, so it's like if he doesn't give you 60 or if he doesn't give you 30 or whatever, if he has a bad game with the volume that he's shooting, it's going to really hurt your team. And you had injuries with Chris Paul. Now, granted, you're not playing the Warriors; it's now the Nuggets that's that team. But I'm sorry, I'm going to throw shots, but it's crazy to see that Harden is now going to be a facilitator. So if he gives you a 30 ball, a 30 and 10, you have to realize that Paul George probably has 30, and Kawhi probably has a double-double, and he got 2 crucial steals. So I think that team is a lot different when you have all 3 of those guys like Pistons firing properly in a good engine. So I like the Clippers. I still don't see them doing no work to the Nuggets. I feel like if they run across the Nuggets, that's where the road's going to end. Timberwolves also look good. So I think they'll get out around 1, maybe, depending on how seeding plays out. But it's just tough to see anyone beating the Nuggets.
My thing is that both Leonard and George are dealing with injuries, but their next 3 games are against Atlanta and Portland twice. Both teams with losing records. So I don't really think there should be too much of a problem there. Yeah, okay. So our number 4 team, Alvin, in the power rankings at plus 700 to win the finals is the Milwaukee Bucks. After a strong start after the All-Star break, the Bucks have gone just 4-3 to start March. Losses against Golden State, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Sacramento Kings made for a tough road trip. But the 2-time MVP Giannis is still in the MVP conversation this season. He's shooting a career-best 61.6% from the field and averaging a career-best 6.4 assists per game. Milwaukee remains a top offensive team, ranking 4th in the NBA in points per game in 120.4 and 5th in offensive rating in 119.2. And Dame still leads the league in free throw percentage at 92.5% and has made more three-pointers than all but 9 players in the NBA at the time of us saying this. What do you think about them as the number 4 team in the power rankings?
I think they're legit. I think they had that issue early on in the year, and their previous coach, they weren't all bought in, and I think that's a huge problem. You get Doc, which to me, it's not wild because I don't think he's a terrible coach. It's weird because the Bucks, where they want to go, Doc has had issues getting there. So that to me was the weird part. But I will say this. You have Giannis, which is, if you're going to say greatest player in the world, you're either talking about Giannis, you're talking about Joker. Some people have Embiid, but no one has the body of work as far as just in the postseason getting it done like those two. So I think having Giannis and then having Dame as a closer that's crazy. That is a crazy duo. And then oddly enough, you throw Pat Bev out there, and I love how now the age of sports media being in the hands of athletes that are currently playing, you get to hear a lot of the mindsets behind these athletes and what drive them. Pat Bev being one of them. Personally, if you just watch him and he's not on your team, you think he's annoying, you don't really like him because he's an agitator. That's what his role is, and that's why he's living as lavishly as he is, and he's still in the NBA. But when you listen to how he approaches talking to Dame Lillard and saying like, yo, you need to shoot those crazy shots. You have Giannis telling him, yo, you are going to be the one to take the last shot. What that does to a player like Dame, coming from being the guy to now first time playing with an elite superstar, when you first go into that transition, granted, I've never given nobody 50 a day in my life, but, you know, being in certain locker rooms.
I haven't even done that in 2K.
No, it's crazy. Like I dabble sometimes, and I could get some buckets, but not like to that level. But when you're playing in certain where it's like, okay, this dude can also seriously get a bucket, you try to, be a little passive and make sure that they get going because you're confident in your abilities. But then it's different being in a situation where you know where you're going to get your shots at all times. Because Dame in Portland, it doesn't matter if he's going to shoot it. It's when he wants to shoot it. Versus with Giannis, there's different. You giving the rock up to someone who is proven he got a ring already. It's different. So now you have him kind of blessing you. Not kind of. He's really blessing you, giving you the keys and saying, listen, we're going to go as far as you take us. And hearing that from a guy like Giannis who has what he wants. He has that ring. And having a guy like Pat Bev who they've had differences. They've butted heads and, in a professional way probably. I don't know them like that to know what else has transpired, but I do know that if you're in a situation that's new and it's foreign, and then you have a lot of the teammates that you're working with that are now your brothers telling you, listen, you do what you do and we'll respond to it, I think that's huge. And knowing how good of a player Dame Lillard is, and you pair that with a big like Giannis, I think that's scary. I would say them versus the Celtics, I think that those two teams, if I'm just taking my heart out of it, because obviously I'm going to say the Heat, but if I take my heart out of it, I would say those two teams are probably going to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals just because of just how star-studded they are, and that now they're starting to pick up and play their best basketball. So I think the Bucks are very scary because you have two of the best in the game as far as Giannis being an aggressor, and then you have Dame who can shoot. You think Steph Curry, and then outside of Steph Curry, you think Dame. So to have a guy like Giannis and then Dame being the second fiddle to that's bonkers. That's mind-blowing. And then you have all the others that could come in and play some defense, do their thing. So I'm excited to see what the Bucks. Not really excited, but I think they're going to do some good things. I just, I can't say I'm excited though, man. I'm a little nervous.
You might be. Well, Milwaukee, fortunately enough for you, has a tough stretch of games in the next week. 3 of 4 games against current playoff teams, Phoenix, Boston, and the Lakers. Now, also, I would have everyone note what Alvin just said. He gave us a very early prediction for the Eastern Conference Finals, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Milwaukee Heat, or the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat.
I would love the Milwaukee Heat.
The Milwaukee Heat. There you go. We're going to clip that and make him eat his words in a couple months here. Anyways, Alvin, our number 5 team in our power rankings At plus 2,000 at the BetMGM Sportsbook, Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder break into the top 5 in championship odds as they keep pace as the top team in the Western Conference. OKC is 9-3 since the All-Star break behind MVP candidate Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Gilgeous-Alexander's second in the NBA in points per game in 31.1, first in steals per game with 2.1, second in player efficiency rating with 30.4, and second in win shares with 13.7. He's not the only contributing factor, though, as all 5 starters are scoring in double figures per game. As a team, OKC leads the league in three-point shooting, free throw percentage, and blocks per game. And the Thunder are 3rd in offensive rating, 5th in defensive rating, and their coach is the runaway favorite for Coach of the Year thanks to their standout season. What do you think?
I really like OKC. Like, honestly, like, I really, really, really love what they do there. I like that storyline. You have one of the younger teams in the league. You have Chet Holmgren, who is in the race for Rookie of the Year, but obviously I hate the fact that you can be in the league for a year, not play, and then be considered a rookie, even though you've been learning from vets and all that. That's just a dumb. To me, it just doesn't make sense because I get it, you haven't played, but you're literally absorbing knowledge from NBA players. You're around that. You're getting the access to the best facilities. You don't have class. Like whatever. We will digress. But I think Chet Holmgren's playing excellent, obviously, in his second year in the league, but he's in the conversation for Rookie of the Year somehow. I think Jalen Williams is playing excellent. I think he's playing excellent. In his last game, 27 points, got busy, can do a lot on the court. You got Josh Giddey, regardless of what you think about him and off the field stuff or off the court stuff, on the court, he could get loose. He can really execute in that mid-range 3 balls, pretty smooth offensively. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is he's exciting. Like, that's just flat out 2-way, do it on defensive end, old school style. He wants to play. He wants to get physical, but he could score wherever. Beyond the arc, if he needs to get deep, he can. But if he needs to slice and dice, use that pivot, use the handles, show off the handles. There's so many clips of him just dropping guys off. I do think Shai's going to put himself and stamp himself as a household name in these playoffs. Just because how he plays and when the lights are shining, he plays well. So I think first series, if it goes to a Game 7 or if it went that first elimination game, he pops off. People is going to be knowing who he is, and he might really push himself. The final stretch of the season might push himself into that MVP conversation a little bit harder than he already has.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Anthony Edwards, both silent but deadly killers from the guard position. We love watching them play. That's definitely the next generation of basketball players. Hey, one more segment coming up on the sports scene when we return. Welcome back to the sports scene, everyone. For our final segment, we're going to go into start, bench, cut for the end of this episode. And Alvin, I'm going to give you 3 players, 3 coaches, 3 teams, 3 whatevers. You're going to start one, you're going to bench one, you're going to cut one, like you're the general manager or the coach of the team or of whatever I'm saying. And we're going to get through these pretty quickly as we wrap up the show here. So start, bench, cut. Let's do some women's basketball real quick. Start, bench, cut. 3 All-Americans, Cameron Brink, Juju Watkins, and Caitlin Clark.
Starting Caitlin, obviously. I think she's going to push the game very far. She's going to be essentially the Jordan of the WNBA when she gets there. A lot of changes are going to be made there, so that'll be fun. I'm probably going to bench Brink just because she's a big. I like how aggressive she is. I like how she plays. Unfortunately, I have to cut Juju, and the only reason why I'm cutting Juju is just efficiency. That's it. That's the only reason why, is because she is getting a lot of volume up, and she's having crazy numbers. However, she's still a freshman, so she got a lot to learn as far as efficiency going, knowing when to get her shots off, and just how to get others involved. And when I say others involved, I don't mean it in the sense that she's self with the basketball. She's giving you double doubles with assists. Like, that's not at all the take. However, the efficiency wise, some shots she's pulling where it's like, okay, you could pick and choose your shots a little bit better. That could be one where you take the Jason Tatum effect, where you're a little bit slower to let your shots fly, let other gals get involved early, knowing that you're going to be able to pick and choose your shots a lot more in that third and that fourth quarter. So that's the only drawback. But I would definitely start Caitlin Clark. Brink is coming off the bench, and unfortunately, Juju is going to be cut.
You know what's funny is I thought you were going to say you're going to bench Juju, but I actually completely agree with what you said. You started Caitlin Clark. She's the best player on the floor at all times. I was watching the Cameron Brink Stanford versus USC game, and Brink had 4 blocks by the second quarter.
It's nuts.
She's a freaking unit down low.
Yeah.
And she's been averaging some of the highest blocks per game ever in college basketball this year. She's a freaking unit, and steals too. High in rebounding, high in steals, extremely high in blocks. And obviously averages about a double-double. So Brink, no doubt she's on the bench because, Caitlin Clark is still the best player on the floor. But Juju Watkins, she is a freshman still. She's got 3 more years of this stuff. And she plays for a great head coach, Lindsey Gottlieb, who came over from the Cleveland Cavaliers to coach at USC. And where was she before the Cleveland Cavaliers? She was the head coach of your California Golden Bears and my California Golden Bears. She's head coach at Cal. And she actually gave me one of my starts in women's basketball and in broadcasting in general. I was the women's play-by-play on the radio for Coach Gottlieb's women's basketball team at Cal when she had Christina Nigwe and Michaela Cowling and that whole squad.
That's dope. Now you're a USC fan.
Well, I'm a Lindsey Gottlieb fan and a Juju Watkins fan.
I'm not a USC fan.
It's all right,
bro. It's okay.
I'm not a USC fan.
That's all right, bro.
There is no way you can put that on me, Alvin. You can't put that on me. Don't you dare put that evil on me. I'm not a USC fan.
There's a lot of therapy sessions. I know everyone who's listened has heard that. He's going to be in therapy soon. The cognitive dissonance is ruining him. He's getting crow's feet, hair's falling out. It's all right. It's cool. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, our second one, start, bench, cut. Gino Auriemma, Dawn Staley, Tara Vanderveer. 3 of the GOATs of college women's basketball.
Dawn Staley
was coached by Tara Vanderveer.
I know.
For Team USA.
I know, but I'm Dawn Staley to a fault, just because.
Okay.
Yeah, I rock her. I like her message. I watch her interviews. I went down
the last 3 years, she's gotten over 100 wins and 3 losses.
3 losses. That's nuts. I can't. Yeah, Dawn Staley's starting for me.
Yeah.
I would have loved to play for someone like that for sure. And then Tara Vanderveer, probably bench her, because unfortunately the other name, I don't know as much about her as I would like. So yeah, that's unfortunately how I'd have to go. But Dawn Staley was 1,000%. I'm starting her, and then Tara Vanderveer I'm benching. Unfortunately, I don't like to do it, but I got to bench her because it's Dawn Staley. If you put another name out there, that'd be different. But yeah, no one's in front of Dawn Staley for me in women's basketball. It's just not.
I actually have to agree with you there. I'm probably starting Dawn Staley, just this year. I'm starting Dawn Staley.
Last year, the year before, bro. Don't matter.
She's 36-0. Hard to compete with 36-0. I'm benching Tara Vanderveer because Tara Vanderveer, the fact that she won the national championship outside of 20 years, and her first win was in the 90s, her second win was in the 2020s, and she coached Dawn Staley, so a lot of Dawn Staley's coaching comes from what Tara Vanderveer did at Team USA. And the fact that Tara Vanderveer has really been able to keep her teams competitive and change with the times while not always having the best players in the country is a standout thing. Gino Auriemma, he's one of the GOATs. College basketball, 69 years old now. And I think, he hasn't necessarily been able to adapt as well as Vanderveer as of late with the introduction of NIL, with the introduction of, more fast-paced movement games. So, it's hard to cut one of the GOATs, but, I'm just going to have to do it. That's and I'm actually going to 100% agree with you there. All right, Alvin, let's get into the NBA a little bit right here. All right, start, bench, cut. Chet Holmgren, Karl Anthony Towns, Bam Adebayo.
So we already know I'm starting Bam. I'm trying to find an objective way of articulating this.
Or you can go unarticulate and just say you're cutting Karl Anthony Towns because we know that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah, yeah, we have to cut. We have to.
We
cut
caught
Cat.
him.
We have to. We have to cut Cat. We have to cut Cat. Like let's just
You're funny.
You're laughing because we have to cut Cat. Let's just be completely, bro. Look.
You're right.
We have to.
Yeah,
cut
give it to
Cat.
me. Give it to me square.
All right. Okay.
Dr.
So
Scrooge.
realistically, what's going on? All right. Let's start from the top. Bam.
Okay.
He hasn't won Defensive Player of the Year because I don't know why. He can guard 1 through 5. He's getting the blocks. It's just not. He's not 7 foot in French apparently. Chet is exciting because Abraham Lincoln's doppelganger is lengthy. He can shoot. He can dribble. He is Wemby, but it's nice to see that he does contribute to winning. Like he makes winning plays. He's smart enough, and what I mean smart enough is he's a second-year guy, and he's been in the league for 2 years, whatever. Apparently, he's still a rookie, but whatever. But that is why I'm going to bench him. It's hard to get rid of a young player that has so much promise as Chet. Cat. I like Jimmy Butler, so I just can't like Cat first and foremost. Second, I think the biggest gripe with Cat is that people. I don't know him personally, so I can't really speak on him as a person. I hope he's a good dude, but on the court, you look at the older 70-point games, 60-point games, 50 balls, where it's like that's a celebratory accomplishment. That's a big accomplishment to be able to get that much buckets in the league. Like that's supposed to be huge, but the way that he gets those buckets, and I think that is a detriment. I think that's a microcosm of how his career has gone in the sense that he hasn't been able to get over the hump. Granted, this is all in the NBA, so you do have to keep in mind that he still is a dog. Like you can't be a dude in the NBA and not be a dog. But if you're comparing NBA dogs to NBA dogs, I would put Chet, his promise, above what Cat has accomplished so far.
Okay, Alvin, your final one real quick here. The 4-team college football playoff, women's March Madness, and men's March Madness. Start, bench, cut.
I'm going to go based off money, revenue generated. I'm going to go off that. I would say college football. Oh, no, let's make it even better. Let's even the playing field. Let's say percentage increase from last year. Women's March Madness is definitely percentage-wise going to increase from last year to this year. I'm going to say women's, that's starting.
Yep.
And we literally just had a whole segment about how prolific the top 25 women are, and we only got to like 4, because if we got all the way down, it would be a 3-hour-long show. So yeah, women's basketball, 1,000%, their playoffs. I might have to go with the men's because March Madness, that's typically the time of year that we're going nuts, making brackets, doing all these things. And it's, man, fathers are talking to their sons that haven't talked all year. Like it is a big, like people, you're going to corporate parties for this stuff. So definitely going to put that there. The 4-team college football playoffs was watched in spite. It was not a happy, I got clients that dudes are just hot, like angry, like so much Garnett and Gold was angry. Like it was a bitter existence. So I think that would be cut just solely because the actual NCAA cut it. They switched it. They had to maneuver away from that. They had to adapt. And what adapting meant is cutting off the caboose, which was the 4-team structure, going into that 12-team, possibly opening the door for a 14 or a 16-team. That sounded crazy. 16-team playoff picture. So I think you got to get rid of that. I love women's basketball and how that's been looking as of late with the stars and how that's going to look going into the WNBA and what the money is going to be put into that marketing scheme. And then men's basketball bench, but I think they're going to have an excellent showcase like they always do. There's going to be some Cinderella story that has the internet ablaze. And I think with the way Twitterverse has been going with college basketball, I think is going to be excellent. Everybody already know what's going on with that 4-team structure for college football. They had to get rid of it.
I almost agree with you completely, but I'm probably benching the 4-team college football playoff because I could still name at least 25 players in the 4-team college football playoff every year.
Fair.
I don't know if I could name 20 right now going into men's March Madness. Obviously, the women's March Madness, we'll be covering all of that here on the sports team. Obviously, we'll be covering the men's March Madness too, and Alvin and I will be doing all of our homework based on that. Easy money. But at this point in time, sorry, got to cut the men's March Madness and bench the 4-team college football playoff. Women's basketball taking the cake this time of the year. We're so excited to keep up on it, and we're excited to see how much this grows the women's game, especially with all of the players and all the stories and all of the headlines that we're about to get from the March Madness tournament on the women's side. By the way, it starts on March 20th, which is coming up in a couple days. We'll be talking about it next weekend here on the Sports Scene. So until then, thank you, Alvin, and thank you all for tuning into the show on iHeartRadio and iHeartRadio Podcast. You want to know more Sports Madness in your life? Well, tune back in on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, or find us on whatever streaming platform that you use at 10 a.m. the same day. Please like, comment, subscribe to us on YouTube at Sports Fluent Media. Rate, comment, download the show everywhere else. And next week, we'll be back with you with a lot more sports talk, so stay tuned. A couple fun interviews coming up. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you right back here on the Sports Scene with Jesse Ough, presented by First Bet.